Hi and welcome back. In this video I want to go ahead and show you how to set up a lightbox image gallery on your page. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up my finished project right here in a browser. And you can see I'm on the dining rooms page right now. And you can see I've just got a small image gallery set up here. It's only got 5 photos inside of it. The image gallery tool that we're going to set up, though, can hold as many different images as you want. Doesn't matter whether you have 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 images, it'll handle that. And you can see as I roll over any of the images, they sort of stand out there a little bit more. And when I click, you're going to see that the full size version of this image appears. Now, when we hover in the upper left or upper right, you're going to see previous and next buttons appear, which means we can scroll back and forth through the images if we want. We also have a caption here in the lower left-hand corner. And if I click on the close button, or if I click outside of the image, it will take me back to the page. So you can see this is a really nice effect, very practical. You can use this on lots of different sites. So let's go ahead and see how we set up this tool. And again, this tool is called a lightbox gallery. And there's one that comes with the sample exercise files in the framework that you can download from my site. Or you can go to Google and simply search for lightbox gallery. And you will find there are dozens and dozens of these lightbox tools for you to download and try. They're all set up just a little bit differently, and they all have somewhat different features and control the way they display the images a little bit differently. But I'm sure you'll find one that you like. I've chosen this one because it's very simple to set up, and it's also very small, so it won't slow your pages down in loading at all. So let's go ahead now, and I'm going to minimize this window and come back into Dreamweaver. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the Files panel, and I'm going to go into my framework. And inside of my framework, you'll go into the JavaScript folder, and then you're going to go into the Plugins folder. And the plugin that you're looking for is right here, the Lightbox Gallery. And if I click that plus sign, you'll see the files that are inside of that right there. Now, as with the previous tools that we went ahead and added to our pages, you need to move some files over before you can actually begin to set the coding up. And again, just like before, in the CSS folder, we've got a CSS file. And in the JavaScript file, we've got a plugin, which in this case is called lightbox.js. You're also going to see jQuery here. Now, we're not going to copy jQuery over because we've already added it to other pages in our site. So if you're trying to add this tool to a new site that you haven't already added anything that needs jQuery, you're going to need to copy this file over and create a link to it. But again, in our case, we're not going to need to do that. And you can always go ahead and download jQuery from jQuery.com. I'm going to go ahead and click on the lightbox, and then I'm going to hold the control key down with my left hand and click on lightbox.js. So I selected both of those files. I'm then going to go ahead and right click on them, select edit, and copy. And after I've copied those two files, I'm going to come back into my project folder. I'm going to right click on the JavaScript, the JS folder, and I'm going to do edit, paste. And you'll see the Lightbox JavaScript was added as well as the CSS. Now obviously the CSS doesn't belong here, so I'm going to drag it up into the CSS folder, and I'm going to go ahead and click update. So we now have the two main files that you're going to need to use in order to set up this Lightbox gallery. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back into my framework, the class exercises, and I'm still in the plugins folder in the gallery folder, and this time we're going to copy over some images. You need to copy over this folder and the 5 images that are underneath it. So I'm going to click on the very first one there, And this folder just simply holds sample folders. And then I'm going to go ahead and, with the Shift key held down, I'm going to click the last one to select that group of files. I'll then go ahead and right click on this, select the Edit menu, and copy. Now I'm ready to go ahead and go back into my project folder and right click on Images, select Edit, and paste. And you're going to go ahead and see those images and that folder have been added to your site. Now, I just simply called the folder that's going to hold my photos Gallery Photos here. But a couple of notes. One is you are going to want to keep your images for your gallery in a separate folder. Don't have them mixed in with all the other images that are on your site, because it'll just make it hard to find the right image. Now, what you call that folder is entirely up to you. Doesn't matter. I just called it Gallery Photos. But you should keep your images for your gallery separate from the image for the rest of your site. It just makes maintenance a whole lot easier. And again, you can rename gallery photos to anything at all that you want. And I'm going to go ahead and close the images folder, the CSS folder, and the JavaScript folder. So now I can just see my pages. Finally, I'm going to go back into my framework, and in the Lightbox folder, go ahead and collapse those, but in the Lightbox gallery folder, you're going to see a text file called Lightbox Instructions. I'm going to go ahead and double click on that to open that up, and this contains all the instructions you're going to need to set up the image gallery. I'm now going to go ahead and go back into my project site, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the dining page, because that's where I want this Lightbox to appear. Now, in the dining page, I'm going to go into Design View and scroll down. You can see I've just got a couple of paragraphs worth of text. I'm going to go ahead and click at the end of the first paragraph and hit Enter, just to give myself some space to add the gallery. And I'm just going to go ahead and type gallery. That way, when I look at this in Design View, I can see very easily where I'm going to go ahead and insert this Lightbox. Now let's go ahead and come back to our instructions. The first set of instructions is to add the jQuery plugin and the JavaScript Lightbox tool to your page. Now, in previous examples, we've already used different jQuery tools. So that jQuery is actually already a part of the site. This line here, it's actually already a part of the site. And when I look at the head section, the very first line here calls jQuery. So if you've already added jQuery to your site for another tool, you don't need to add it again. We just need to add it once. But what I do need to do is I do need to add a link to the Lightbox JavaScript file. So I'm going to highlight this entire line, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy it. I'm going to go to the dining page, and this area here is controlled by the template, meaning you can't edit anything here that's grayed out. But you're going to see down here the title is actually in normal text, and that's because that's an editable region that we can add things to. So this is where I actually want to add that link right there below title. I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in there. And you can see it's going to JS Lightbox, and I'm assuming that that's where you pasted it in from the exercises. If you put it somewhere else, you're going to go ahead and need to point to it somewhere else. But again, right now, my Lightbox tool right here is in the JS folder. So that's set up perfectly. Now I need to go ahead and come in here to step 2. Step 2 is to copy and paste the link to the CSS file. And again, this is going to point to the CSS folder and the lightbox.css file. So if you copied and pasted the images over, or the scripts over, and then dragged the Lightbox CSS into the CSS folder, you'll be fine as far as that goes. Otherwise, you would need to put the path in here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that line and come back here, and I'm going to paste it in right underneath that script right there. So now I have a JavaScript and a link to the CSS file that formats the gallery. Finally, I'm going to come back over here to step 3, and step 3 is going to activate the plugin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy that block of text, and again I'm going to come into the dining page and I'm going to go ahead and paste that script in there. I'll save my file, and now what we're ready to do is start adding images to our page for the lightbox to work on. So I'm going to go ahead and come back into my instructions here again. And here we are with step 4, where we can add a sample image to our gallery. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this block of code, everything from the opening gallery div to the closing of that div. And then I'm going to go ahead and right click on it, copy it. I'm going to come back into my dining page, and in design view you can see I want to put the gallery right there in between these two paragraphs. And there's that right there. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that line, knowing that's where I want the gallery to appear, and I'm going to hit enter 3 times. I'm then going to go ahead and highlight the middle line here and paste that in. And actually I'm going to go ahead and highlight it and hit tab to move it in so I can see that it's part of this. Now, any images that appear inside of the gallery div here can be made into the image box, or can be used in the image box or the light box. Right now I just have one image right here, but if I wanted to add another image, all I would do is copy this code and paste it in. Now, the link to the photo that you want to display when they click the image is going to be placed right here. href, and then it has, quote, insert photo path, close quote. I need to highlight that entire phrase, including the quotation marks, and then type a quotation mark, and that brings that browse box up. If you learn nothing else in this series of classes, you're going to learn how to use that browse tool. And then I'm going to press enter, and it brings up the select file dialog box. Now I placed my images, my gallery images, in the images folder, and you can see there's that gallery photos folder. And again, you would name your folder whatever you want. You just need to place your images inside of there. Also, one other thing about this box, sometimes people can't see a whole lot, and you can see that right here. I can always drag this around and make it larger. So I can always move and resize this window. But I want to go into gallery photos here, and I'm going to go ahead and select my first photo. And again, these are just some sample photos that we're putting in here right now. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you're going to see that that is placed in there. You need to do the exact same thing on the line below it. Highlight where it says insert photo path, including the quotation marks. Type another quotation mark and hit enter when the browse button comes up, and select the same image. And click OK. Now you may be asking or thinking, why did I add the same image twice? And the reason for that is this first line is the full-size image. This is the link that brings up the full-size image. This second item down here is the thumbnail of the image, or the small version of the image that people see on the page that they can click on. Now, couple of options here. The title attribute that we have right here, where it says this is caption text, that's where you're going to place the link. I'm sorry, not link. That's where you're going to place the caption for the image. And I'm just going to go ahead and type sample caption text right there. On the second line, and again, this is for the thumbnail, the small version of the image, you're going to see width 120, height 80. If you want to make your image, your thumbnail images smaller or larger, you could adjust the width and the height right here. So if I was to make this 150 by 100, the thumbnail would be larger. If I was to make it 100 by 65, it would be a little bit smaller. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to save this file, and let's see if it works. I'm going to go into Design View here, and sure enough, there's our thumbnail. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up in a browser window. There's my thumbnail. When I click it, there is the full-size image. And again, you can see it says sample caption text right there. What you are going to notice is that there's no next and previous options right here. And there's also no image counter down below the caption. And that's because I've just added one image at this point. So let's go ahead and add another image to our gallery. I'm going to go ahead and click close here and close that page. And again, remember this is the original. And then I'm going to go back into Code View. Now remember, anything that's inside of the gallery div is going to be displayed as an image thumbnail. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and highlight these two lines of text, these two lines of code right here. Right click and copy. And I'm going to paste them in right below. And you can see where I've got that right there. I'll go ahead and highlight this just like this. And type a quotation mark and hit browse. And I'm going to go ahead and do the second image. And then I'll go ahead and highlight this right down here, a quotation mark, browse, and again do the second image. And one thing that I always do whenever I've got any kind of gallery or any kind of series of images, either for a banner slider or a content slider or for this image gallery, is I always put them in the same folder and I number them sequentially. So you can see I've got 1 and 1 here, 2 and 2 here, but the path is the same. So at this point, because I set my folders up that way, or my images up that way, I can very easily just paste this in another 3 times and go ahead and change this to 3 and 3, change this to 4 and 4, and change this to 5 and 5. And that'll really speed up setting up image galleries. If you're processing your images with Photoshop or Fireworks, they both have a batch export feature where you can choose to rename all of your images, and that helps in setting this up. But it's fairly easy to rename a file, and it's certainly much easier than highlighting and doing the browse option every time. So I now have 5 images in my gallery. And remember, this is the thumbnail. I'm sorry, this is the full size of the image. The line below it is the thumbnail. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. Go into Design View, and you can see I now have 5 images. They're stacking over on top of each other right now. We'll see how to correct that in just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and open this up in a browser window, and you'll see there are my 5 images. And again, if I click on an image, it comes up. Now remember, last time we didn't have previous and next buttons. But now that we have more than one image, those navigation options are coming up. It's also telling you that this is image 2 of 6 in the gallery. Whoops. Or 3 of 6 in the image gallery. And we still have a close button there. And there is our caption text. So very easy to set up this lightbox inside of a page. Now the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is look at the gallery CSS or the lightbox CSS and see how we can change that CSS to format these thumbnails and images a little bit differently. So let's go ahead now, and I'm going to minimize this, and I'm back here in Dreamweaver, and I want to go ahead and come into the lightbox.css related file, and I want to look at this in code view. Now, for the most part, these top styles in here, you're not going to need to change any of that. What you are going to need to change are the gallery styles. And the gallery styles are right down here at the bottom. Now, a couple things that you're going to want to change right off the back. One is the width, and the other is the padding. The width determines the overall space that that div, in this case the gallery div, has. So when we go ahead and look at our page in design view, you can see I've only got 4 images here, and then the images start to wrap over. And again, that's because we don't have enough space here. We've only got 580 pixels to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and increase that. So I'm going to come back into my lightbox.css, and I'm going to change 580 to 680. And we'll save it. And let's see now. That still doesn't have enough room. Come back into code view. And again, all the way at the bottom, there are the galleries. I'm going to change that to 780. And that definitely will be probably enough. And I'll come into design view. And there we go. That image is wrapped up there to the top. And I'm going to come back into code view for my lightbox CSS. Now, you also have these items right here. And you're going to see this is going to place that gray border around your image. And this is going to set the spacing around the image. Now, in this case, I have 5 pixels of padding and 5 pixels of margin. Come back in here to design view, and you can see there's 5 pixels of padding in between the image and the gray border. There's then 5 pixels of margin space outside of the image. And since there's 5 pixels of padding on the outside of this image and this image, that actually equates to 10 pixels of padding in between your images. So those are 2 options that you're going to definitely want to look at. If you want more space, you would just increase that. If I come in here to code view, I could say padding is going to be 10 pixels and the margin will be 10 pixels. And let's go ahead and save that. Go back into design view, and you can see things are now much more spaced out. And I can play around with that and just keep changing the values here until I come to something that looks the way I want it to. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 7 pixels of padding. And you could also change the thickness or the color or style of the border around the thumbnail right here. I'm going to go ahead and save that and come back into design view, and you can now see the padding is smaller, but I still have that spacing between my images. And again, if I go into preview this in my browser, actually you're going to see here they wrapped on me. And that's one thing you've always got to be careful of. Even if you look at something in design view here, it may not necessarily look like that when you actually look at it in a browser. So it's very important to look at your designs in Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, to make sure that all the spacing is consistent. And actually, if I was to come in here to live view, let's see how that would look. Live view is showing me that it's wrapping. So I can come back in here to code view, scroll on down, and I'm going to reduce this to 5, and I'm going to reduce this to 8. And we'll save that and go back into design view, and now you'll see that I now have enough space for those images to be displayed on one line. And just to be sure, we'll look at this in Chrome, and sure enough, there they are, and yes, the pop-up works. So that's all you have to do to add a very easy to configure but very nice image box tool or lightbox tool to display galleries of images on your web page. In the next video, we're going to do something very similar to this. We're going to see how to set up the modal pop-up window. And basically, this is going to work a lot like this image gallery tool, only instead of bringing up an image, it's going to bring up text for you. So I'll see you in the next video.